Folks, welcome to an all new episode of So Bad It's Good with Ryan Bailey. This is your pal Ryan, and I guess this is your Tuesday episode. I was going to take today off, and then we got the Diddy news. Diddy is in custody right now. He was not granted bail. We're going to go into all of this. So, this is just going to be a Diddy centric episode. The artist formerly known as Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, all of this stuff, but so much information has been coming out, and this has been rumored for so long. So we finally got the indictment unsealed this morning, and he went to court with his lawyer. Which, by the way, the same lawyer that represents Diddy is the Keith Raniere, the Nixium cult leader. Same lawyer. So solid work all around. But I want to take you through the indictment. You guys might already know all of this stuff yourselves. So, if this isn't your cup of tea, don't worry. I'll have a new episode on Wednesday with a great guest, a lot of fun stories. I just also felt weird putting this into a more fun episode. I do like to go every which way in terms of pop culture, but I think this kind of deserves its own episode because this is really dark stuff. Very, very dark. I want to handle this correctly, and I don't want to switch from talking to Diddy to, hey, tell me about your worst job experience, which you'll understand more when you listen to Wednesday's episode. So we're just going to do this as a whole episode. I got to speak to students at ASU at the Walter Cronkite Media School of Broadcasting, Journalism, and Media. They have an LA campus now, Arizona State University, which is my alma mater. And I got to speak to these students today. I'm going to talk more about that on Wednesday's episode as well. But man, it was talk about being inspired and just talking to them about what I do and about media in general. It really, really inspired me. And last night I was doing the Vanderpump Rules season 1 finale recap over on Patreon, and my voice was just raw by the end of it. Just, from traveling and things like this. You guys who have been with me, I've just had ongoing health issues. I'm seeing an ENT, all of this stuff. But listen, I was going to take a day off, but this Diddy stuff, I want to talk through this even for myself. But I do want to let you know up top, we are going to be talking about a lot of sexual situations, a lot of adult material. I just want to warn you up top that these are extremely sensitive topics that we will be discussing. So want to give you a huge trigger warning if you've seen the news already, that you know what we'll be talking about. But I just wanted to give you that warning up top as we get into this, because I want to go over the indictment. I want to go over Diddy surrendering, Diddy in the courtroom, and what happens next, who else is potentially involved. I mean, when this man said decades ago, bad boy for life, he was being serious. And, he was hit with a RICO charge, racketeering. This is mafia shit. This is gangster level. And this is, the Southern District of New York, they don't bring cases to the court that they can't win. So they believe that they have a very, very solid case against Diddy. And of course, we have now all seen the video of Puff Daddy abusing his ex-girlfriend, Cassie. And that video got leaked a while back, and we got to see the derangement, how disturbing that video was. Just sick. And it sounds like, from reading this indictment, and, listen, I'm not a huge person on rumors. This is not a celebrity blind podcast, but I do recommend, podcasts like Beyond the Blinds. I love Demois. I love all that stuff. I just don't cover that here. But now we actually have some factual proof that we can talk about. And it seems like this man has a history of this behavior for decades. Now, these charges go back to 2008. But remember, this man, it's got to be going on decades before this. And, he was celebrated, Puff Daddy, for his persistence in this industry, starting off as an intern and working his way up with like Uptown Records. And, his mentor was Andre Harrell. Like all of this stuff. And, a billionaire. He's a billionaire, for the love of God. But he's being accused of racketeering. He's being accused of these freak off parties, which we will talk about. But it is a lot of very, very, very disturbing allegations against this man. And he had he was willing to put up $50 million. He was going to put up his Miami home, which he paid off recently because he knew this was coming down the line, and he was putting that up as collateral, and the judge denied it. The judge denied bail, and the judge had some really telling words saying, listen, your lawyer asks us to trust you, but we can't, you can't even trust yourself, the judge said. You can't even trust yourself, so we are denying this bail. And he even moved to New York, um, because he knew these charges were coming down the pike, and he wanted to be released to his home, and only traveled to New York and Florida. He wanted traveling between those, but he could be, tracked through an ankle monitor or things like that. So he was offering all of this up, which we'll read that documentation as well. He was hoping to get the Jeffrey Epstein treatment, because the first time Jeffrey Epstein was arrested, remember, he had a sweetheart deal. He had a sweetheart deal where he was able to go back to his home every day, and then he would turn himself into prison at night. Like, this was the sweetheart deal of sweetheart deals. And this, Jeffrey Epstein, clearly guilty at the time. It was on his second arrest, and then when he unalived himself, if he actually did that to himself, that's when things got even more gravely serious, because his pattern of behavior continued. And one would think that Diddy is the same in that sense, is that this pattern of behavior has continued for so long that there is no way that this would stop. And you can only imagine, which we do with a lot of celebrities or even people in our own lives, of what the psychological, or what Diddy is thinking right now, and what he has thought all this time, that he is untouchable, that he really thinks that he's in the mob, the Godfather, like that he thinks this power, this iron, he's accused also of bribing these people to keep quiet. They found AK-47s in one of the searches for his home, and the serial numbers had been scratched off, so you couldn't trace the gun. On top of 100 bottles of lubricant and baby oil, which they presume was used in these freak off parties. Okay. It really is just a bunch of damning evidence. And now, on top of this, he also has 10 lawsuits against him. One of the Making the Band ladies sued him this past week for $100 million. There was a judgment against him from a man last week for $100 million. I mean, the lawsuits are coming, and I would expect them to keep coming. And these are where everybody is going to have their hands out that has been affiliated with any of these things. Some people are imagining that other celebrities potentially could be involved. And, there's always been speculation about artists that Diddy has worked with, from Usher to Justin Bieber to, I mean, it goes all the way up to Jay-Z, to Beyonce, to Rihanna, to Kim Kardashian. I don't have any proof or knowledge of any of that being true. But if he's having these really kind of eyes wide shut orgy parties, and he's grooming, which he's being accused of grooming, and grooming underage people as well, that you don't know how far up the line it goes. A lot of people brought J-Lo back into the chat, because remember when Diddy was brought up on those charges, having the gun, he gave the gun to J-Lo. J-Lo put it in her purse. Remember that? That was like 25, was it 30 years ago? So long ago. One of the first trials that Diddy had to go through. So there is a lot on this man, but he is going to be behind bars while he awaits his trial. Now, of course, his lawyer has already come out and say they are going to appeal this decision. They're going to try to get him this bail. And this is where you don't know which way it's going to go. Like, I think it's an obvious don't let him out, right? But money and power can be used in very weird ways. We've seen it done time and time again. But I do think the visibility on this case right now, and because of people like Jeffrey Epstein, and other high profile cases like that, Harvey Weinstein, that they will make an example out of Diddy, deservedly so. He belongs there. But it'll be interesting to see, because remember, law seems to be a game of legal maneuvering. It seems to be a chess game. And, defense lawyers, they are doing everything for their client. And in this case, there is an unlimited bankroll for now. I'm sure that will dry up rather quickly, but for now there is. So there's going to be a lot of legal maneuvering in this case, and especially once we get towards trial, which is really so far out there into the distance, I would imagine. Okay, folks, I'm back. And in the meantime, I got a guest because she commented on my Instagram about Diddy. You've heard her on this show before. I used to be in acting class with her, and you've seen her on shows like Mad Men, movies like Garden State, and of course, last year's insanely good Jury Duty, where she played the lawyer, but she was a real life lawyer in her life, a defense attorney that worked out of New York. And I have her here to ask a couple questions about Diddy. Trisha LaFache, welcome back to the show.
Hi,
Can you
Ryan.
hear
Thank
me?
you for having
Hey,
me.
what's
Good
up?
to be back.
Yeah, yeah, good to be
Yeah.
good. Sorry, it's back
Hey.
on this kind of horrific news. Even though I think a lot of people suspected Diddy. By the way, you grew up in New York. What was your take on Diddy back in the day?
Oh gosh. Um, what was my take on Diddy? I never had a. I've been in. I've shared spaces with Diddy
Yeah,
many times. I had a girlfriend who dated him, and also we partied in the same circles when I was very young. With him, I always thought, there was a lot of scariness, weirdness around the bad boy kind of camp. But
yeah.
the couple times I saw him where I was in a close proximity to him, I didn't see anything particularly that I could point out and say. But I think everybody kind of felt there was a lot of darkness in his world.
Yeah, and that was back in the 90s. So these
Everybody in the 90s
charges,
anyway.
these charges started in
At
like
least the early
2008.
2000s, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
said a comment on my Instagram about that they've where they've stored Diddy, they've stopped all visits for prisoners right now as they get Diddy situated. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my girlfriend, I'm actually working on finishing up my true crime podcast that's going to come out on iHeart on November 12th. So I would love to come back for that. But I was
Yeah, of
working,
course.
tediously to do some work on that, and one of my girlfriends just texted me, thank you, and said, where's he at? And I said, oh, he's at the MCC in Manhattan, just because I know that that's where all you know federal inmates are taken, and that's where he will be housed until there is a disposition of the case, and that is whether he pleads guilty or is convicted and subsequently sentenced, or somehow is released prior, which I don't see happening. But so I said the MCC, and just kind of like Googled it to send her the website so she could read what a it's the worst prison. It's not a prison because it's a detention center, which means everybody who is housed in there, and they're housed on top of each other. They're housed, being held, waiting for sentencing, having been convicted, and waiting to be shipped off to an actual federal corrections institute that isn't a detention center, or they're there because they're being held before they're cooperating on another case. So they're charged, but they've decided that they are going to work with the government. So all of those kinds of people are there in this jail. So I Google it, and I see on the very top, you can Google it right now, MCC, it said all visits at this facility are suspended until further notice. That's how I found out. Oh my God, that. But you can picture the scene. I mean, the detention center is attached to the courthouse, so Diddy will not see the outside. Uh, um, let's say he is convicted and sentenced to a federal correctional institution. Most of those institutions, except for the super maxes, do have outside areas. Heck, even the detention center in Brooklyn, the MDC, has at least a track. This institution has no outdoors whatsoever. On the top floor of, I believe, a 10-floor building, there is the way I could describe it to you is a basketball court that is not open. It's not a basketball court. It's more like a holding facility, but that's how I want you to imagine it. That is closed on three walls and closed more than three-quarters of the way on the fourth wall that's exposed to the street. And so there's about 6 feet of air that is covered in gate that these inmates can feel for the duration of their stay. Not only that, because the MCC is attached to 500 Pearl Street, even when he goes to court, they will walk in a tunnel underneath the detention
Wow.
center, and to the courthouse.
Oh my gosh. I mean, so I mean, he's going to have to, well, I mean, like, listen, they just announced that there's going to be another hearing tomorrow because they're appealing the bail
Of
decision
course.
from today.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
what are I mean, he was willing to put up his $50 million home, which he paid off recently because he knew this was coming down the pike. And then the judge even said, hey, you can't even trust yourself at this point. We don't trust you because you lied about the Cassie video. You've lied about all of these things. And, you know, this is a RICO charge. There's racketeering.
Yeah.
There's so many different things. I mean, this is, isn't this guaranteed a life sentence in prison? How could he possibly get off on any of these charges?
I don't know. I don't think he could. I mean, I hate to, um, regarding, of course they were going to appeal the bail, right? And
Yeah.
you said that they're going to give him another hearing tomorrow.
Yeah, they said tomorrow. They announced it just a second ago at like 3:30 p.m. They're going to be
Yeah.
back in court to appeal this, which kind of shocked me because I'm like, why did the wheels of justice move so slow for other people, but for Diddy,
Right.
they're able to get in right immediately the next day?
Right. I mean, you heard the confusion in my voice. Listen, I mean, here's the deal. First of all, I think putting a $50 million house was cheap. They know how much he's worth. Like,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
if they would have presented a $300 million bail package, if I was the AUSA arguing against him, I would have said that $50 million is a joke. He doesn't care if he loses $50 million if he's able to escape a life sentence. Like, don't be so cheap with your future. Take this a little more seriously. He should have put up 500 million as an offer. At least they would have maybe considered that an offer in good faith. And since it's not going to the judge's pocket, I'm sure that my guess was there's not enough money in the world that would have secured. First of all, anytime that. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, is there, I mean, that's what I was going to ask. Is it like, can they go back tomorrow and say, hey, we want to bump that up to 500 million? Does that do anything for you? Like, there's no way at this point the judge can rule against that.
Listen, I know for a fact that there is what they call a presumption against bail in any narcotics case. So, I'm trying to, that means that there's a presumption that you should not get bail when there's narcotics involved. The reason why, and so that means you have to argue to get over the hump of the presumption. I don't know how big of an element the narcotics, is. I don't think they're alleging distribution. I think they're alleging.
Well, no. In the indictment, it said, it was like GHB, Molly, a bunch of different party drugs on, but I mean, right. GHB, like the date rape drug, but it was also used during those freak off parties.
These young ladies into, yeah. So I don't think that's it. I think that the sex trafficking, the duration of the 2008 until now, I think those are the reasons why there isn't going to be bail. Like you said, not the seriousness of the charges and the amount of time that he is facing. I don't think any of those are surmountable for. And so there's two different things. One thing is if the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is hearing, I'm wondering, are you saying that what you read is making you believe that he's going to be back in front of the same judge entering a new bail application or appealing to the Ninth Circuit?
No, I mean that they were going to be, let me see, I'm pulling it up right now. It was the LA City, one sec, sorry. Following. Where is this? I was just okay. This is from the Inner City Press. It says update in U.S. versus Sean Combs. We will do it all over again tomorrow, September 18th at 3:30 p.m. Diddy will be appealing today's denial of bail. Not yet in the docket, but that's what Inner City Press is hearing, and we will cover it here.
So the way I understand that is that won't be a request for okay, there's two ways that this can go down. The best way to get bail is to have it agreed upon with the U.S. prosecutor before you go to before the judge. Okay,
which is what he
so
was trying to do with that letter that we saw with the $50 million, and he was willing to give up his passports, his family's passports, that stuff.
right. So if the United States attorney tells the judge, I've spoken with Mr. Combs' attorney, who sounds like a real rat, by the way.
Well,
And
by the way, it's Keith Raniere. It's Keith Raniere from Nixium's attorney.
Of course it is.
Remember that cult? Yeah.
Of course it is. I mean, listen, I'm like you said, I'm a former defense attorney. I'm still a defense attorney at heart. I understand that people need defenses, but from what I read with him dragging Cassie's name and talking about the toxicity of their relationship, when I read from the indictment, it doesn't seem relevant at all. It just
yeah.
Seems
by the way,
like,
what she's referring to is the lawyer said that they were both, Cassie and Diddy, going through dark periods of their life. They were a toxic couple on both sides. So the lawyer actually argued this, saying Cassie was just as dark as Diddy, and they were just both going through a troubling time.
And by the way, standards of bail are, is this person a threat to the community? Is this person a threat to witnesses? And do we think this person is a flight risk? Whether or not they had a toxic relationship, which I just can't imagine how
it's irrelevant.
Came up it's totally irrelevant.
Well, and to your point is that's another reason why they didn't grant bail today, because he has already been proven to coerce witnesses. There was like over 100 calls to one of the ladies in making the band until they put out a pro Diddy statement in regards to him. So he's already been caught trying to influence and pay off people. So they do not want to give him that opportunity to keep that pressure campaign going.
Exactly. So even though I'm sorry, I changed it. So if the defense attorneys and the U.S. attorneys don't come up with a package that satisfies the government, and whatever the defense attorneys want, the U.S. attorney opposes, the judge will almost never go in favor of the defense attorney, because they do not want to be responsible for if something bad happens. Potentially, a judge could say, come back tomorrow and give me a better bail package. Like, I would like to see more. And usually that's if the judge theirself thinks that the U.S. attorney is being a little bit too harsh and believes that, maybe potentially this person really isn't a flight risk, and there might be some combination of factors that makes me feel more comfortable. What this sounds like to me is that that I'm not certain that the way that the journalist wrote, we're doing this all again tomorrow, is exactly what the judge said.
Yeah.
Right. Because I've had situations where the judge said, denied for today, come back tomorrow with something better, see if the U.S. attorney agrees with that. I don't think that's what she said. I think she said denied, and their only step was to appeal to the Ninth Circuit. And I don't know a world where they could be in front of the Ninth Circuit by tomorrow morning.
Okay, so guys, that might be incorrect information. I'm sure everything is this is really spur of the moment. It was just something that I read, but it did make me wonder how much, having that much money and influence, can influence these things, because you got to think back to Jeffrey Epstein and that sweetheart deal that he got in Florida, where he was allowed to go to his house every day and then just check back in to the prison at night for his first arrest with Jeffrey Epstein. So I was, but his lawyer, if you were saying all of this, his lawyer had to know there was like little to no shot of him getting that bail granted.
1,000%. His lawyer is trying to not get fired. And you know what I mean? And just do whatever Diddy told him to say. Don't forget, the MCC is where Epstein bid it, right? I mean, that's what I was going to ask.
Is that the same facility? That's the same facility.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. When Epstein first croaked, because who knows if he, what happened exactly. We don't know what we've been told. People reported that it was Rikers, but that's not true. He was in the MCC, which is exactly where Diddy is, which I was at one time locked in a cell with my terrorist client for 12 hours. And it ended up making the New York Times, but that's a story for another day.
Is that your podcast
it is
in November? Trisha, is that your November
yeah,
podcast that you're doing? Jeez.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I still want to just spend people's Diddy time on it. But listen, it's true. I'm only hearing what you listen. It's possible that we are doing it all again tomorrow. I was just listening to those words and thinking, I'm not sure how he could get back in unless I feel we would have heard from the judge. Let's put this for now. He's detained. Let's put this over for tomorrow and see if you could, because the district court judge is the trial court judge, which in this case is a magistrate and not a judge. But it then goes up to the Ninth Circuit. So I think what they are doing is filing an appeal and asking for leave for the Ninth Circuit to overturn what the magistrate judge decided. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Also, don't forget, Jeffrey Epstein is white. So there's a much stronger possibility that he was going to get better treatment than, by the way, nothing I say is to favor Diddy, even if I talk about how horrible the circumstances are in that prison for detention center. It's not out of sympathy. It's out of just sharing with your audience, that it's stuff in there. Like, it's horrible.
Well, my question was and I know this is a different case than probably anything you've ever worked on, but like, he's going to be remanded there until the trial starts. And I know the Southern District, they won't bring charges unless they've got a really solid case. How quickly can they start this trial? And as a defense attorney, what would you imagine? Are they wanting to start it as quickly as possible? Are they wanting to delay it? And especially if he's behind bars, I would imagine quickly as possible. And also, these two raids on his mansions happened, a long time ago at this point. Diddy had to have known these charges obviously were coming, like we all did. So they finally come. What was he doing in this? There was that one moment where his plane was like near the Caribbean and they thought he had like skipped town a while back, and he didn't do that. He came to New York. He was in Central Park just on Monday, taking pictures with fans. He was supposed to be detained today. He was supposed to give himself up willfully.
Yes.
And
self-surrender.
and then they went ahead and they surprised him and got him on Monday night. So we don't know why that was. They must have had some sort of information to go against their agreement with Diddy in terms of taking him in. But so how long is this going to be, you think, in terms of getting this trial started?
Well, it's years, and everything that you said is correct. You sound like a defense attorney yourself. Yes, if your client is free, then of course your tactic is to stall as long as humanly possible. We had this conversation, we talked about Jen Shah. Right now, I think Diddy is probably like, but I didn't do it. There's this kind of thing that washes over defendants where they believe they're innocent, even though they know that they're not. I think it's a fight or flight mechanism that our bodies are built with, right? So yes, you would think that the person would want to go to trial as soon as possible. However, they're going to want to file a motion to dismiss. So the motion schedule will be set. And regardless of how quickly Diddy wants to get out of there, which is probably right now, the attorneys are going to say, Your Honor, we need 3 months to file these motions. And then if we give 3 months, then 30 days after that, the government has to respond. Then they have to have hearings on the motions. Then the judge has to issue her order on the motions. So just motion practice alone. And honestly, I don't know how much discovery, which is everything that the government has, that they have to turn over to the defense for the defense to be able to go through it. I don't know if this is a wiretap case. I've gone through, I think the most I've ever gone through was 7 years of wiretaps on a phone account, email account, and a fax account. And those had to be translated from Arabic to English. So that took even more time, but these wouldn't. So it really depends on what the discovery is, because there's the motion schedule. They're definitely going to file a motion to dismiss. There's no way that they'll move forward without filing. And I had an 8-month federal terrorism trial in the Southern District of New York that we were in the pretrial phase, for almost 3 years before we actually went to trial.
Oh my God.
And the client was in the MCC the entire time. And then he went
Now,
to jail for 20 years, but
I
yeah.
mean,
Like
I'm
that one.
obviously you see the deterioration of your clients, and these aren't billionaires, your clients of the past. So, I mean, I would imagine you're going to see Diddy deteriorate rapidly because even the MCC, we saw Epstein's living conditions. They truly don't give an F, I would imagine, who he is. So I don't know if like special treatment or favors, or his commissary or any of that. I mean, is there a chance that they're going to treat this guy like a king in prison? Or in
Thing
this
is,
detention facility,
yes, yeah. The thing is, commissary, sure. If there's fans, if some of the U.S. Marshals are fans of his, he may get more favorable treatment, or maybe they are not fans of his and he'll get less favorable treatment. The facility is not set up like Jailbirds or any of these shows that you see on Netflix,
Yeah,
where there's,
yeah.
open spaces and you can make a lasagna or some hooch.
Yeah,
It's not set up like that. You got to picture real estate in Manhattan that is, it's not a campus.
yeah,
It's a building that is, the inmates are crammed on top of each other, and it's not the coolest environment because of the fact that there are different kind of inmates living there, particularly the cooperating witnesses versus the people who are going to trial and the people that are sentenced and awaiting assignment at an FCI. You don't have that at a prison where you're in more of a group setting and there's rec. And listen, this isn't, he will be able to get, I believe, books and, those kinds of things. But this is not a comfortable space to be in whatsoever. So I can't picture how he could be treated like a king because it's so awful in there.
so I would imagine they would
There's other
actually.
places. I'm sure once.
No, I would
Or
say
I
I
was
would
say once
imagine they
he's
would.
sentenced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
once he said what? No, once he's sentenced, what?
I doubt unless he goes to the most super max, then I think he's in a better situation once he's sentenced and he's off, to have a situation like you would see on TV. But in this situation, it's literally like,
Yeah,
and if you want to ask me anything specific about, treated like a king, it could just be people are like, we're praying for you, Diddy, or, which I think is
yeah, yeah,
crazy, but
yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, also, I would imagine that the lawyer at some point you'll hear some health motions like Harvey Weinstein, where he needs and goes to visit special doctors so he can actually leave the
right.
facility. I've seen that happen in those high profile cases as well. But you're saying also with his mentality, he thinks that they're just out to get him right now. He thinks he is being wronged potentially, because I would imagine the lawyer will argue something like, listen, these people all knew what they were signing up for. They all were consenting adults, even though they say there are underage minors involved in this. But I believe they're going to go with this tactic of, we can't have the government in our bedrooms. Everybody knew
Yeah.
what they were signing up for. How much play as a defense attorney do you have? I mean, is that a good defense?
The thing is that for this is off the top of my head, obviously, for the underage gals, they are not allowed to consent, right? So anybody who's underage, even if they gave consent, it wouldn't be lawful because they don't have, the legal capacity to do so. The other thing is, even if some of the women said they did consent, which there would be no reason, obviously, for the government to call them. If sex trafficking is illegal anyways,
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter whether they consented. You know,
Yeah.
it's same thing as
Because
prostitution.
he
You
took
can
them
still get
across.
arrested.
Well, he took them across state lines. With that's where the trafficking, you guys, comes into play, because he arranged for these these male sex workers and these females to travel on top of everything else. And this has been going on for so long. I just would imagine at some point, why are they not? Why were they? I mean, why were they doing this in the first place? But why are you trafficking anybody? Like, just have it at the one location. Like, these are the dumb questions I
Well,
keep thinking
no,
about. Like,
I
why are
think
you
it's
doing this?
because I think it's because they. I mean, they thought that they, meaning him and the people that were with him, thought that even if they had four girlfriends that they were cheating on with, when they were in out of state, they're not going to, it would be easier if they wanted the company of women just to pay for that service. So in those situations, when we think sex trafficking, I think somebody being removed against their will in a van and taken
Yeah.
across state lines, like, like a teenager, and then we see their wanted photo, like those are the images they're conjured. But in this case, even saying, hey, travel to here because I have a connection with you and you're only one state away. I have all of the money in the world. So I will send my private plane, or I will send you with this, or get on that and I'll pay for it. That is still trafficking because it's illegal. So that's why I feel the issue of consent isn't as high as we would think it was, because again, like I'm saying, if we look at it just like prostitution, if you're a young lady who is a sex worker, and by the way, I'm not even talking about my own personal opinion, I'm just saying, like, if that's the choice that you want, he's like, I would like to make my career doing
Yeah.
this, then you can still get arrested for it because the government doesn't agree. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of how you have to frame the sex trafficking. Maybe some people were taken against their will, especially if they went to a certain place thinking that they were going to hang out, and then they were drug induced or alcohol induced into doing something that they didn't sign up for. But some people went willingly, but it doesn't matter because that's not up to them
Yeah.
as to whether it's a crime.
Well, I mean, then Trisha, this indictment reads like a tawdry, like pulp novel, where you have like little details that I don't know if they are in there to embarrass him, or like the 100 bottles of lube, having everybody get IVs after multiple days of these orgies. He's touching himself while he's watching these sex workers do things to these women. There's coercion, where he was convincing women that these were romantic relationships, and then kind of grooming them up to this point. His sons allegedly are involved as well, and they have this on film. He has filmed these freak off sessions, and those are the things that they have allegedly in their hands through these raids on both of his homes. Sorry, you guys, we lost Trisha. This is all being done on the fly. Just wanted to talk about this and get this out. So thank you to Trisha LaFache for joining us. She'll be back in October or November to talk about her new podcast. She has so many fascinating stories, but we were just texting because Wi-Fi issues. But she just said she wanted to mention, she said she wanted to add that she cannot believe freak off is now a legal term of art. She's just like, I can't even keep a straight face when I'm talking about that, because he dubbed these parties that he was having, these orgies, freak off parties. And that's all talked about in the indictment. We'd already heard about this, going back to Cassie and all of that stuff of last year. There's also arson charge in there as well. His sons are named. I mean, there's a lot of stuff just coming at us. So we're going to go through the indictment and also what they proposed. We talked about the bail that they had proposed. We'll go over their proposal to the Southern District that obviously was denied. And Diddy is in this detention center right now. And I know exactly, once she said the Jeffrey Epstein, also, who else was housed there? R. Kelly was housed there. Michael Cohen at first was housed there. And it sounds like just a horrific place, but these are horrific, horrific crimes. And I'm really just curious what this man has been doing since last November, when he settled literally the day after with Cassie for $30 million on top of his ex Kim Porter, who is dead. There are so many question marks. We truly need Wendy Williams in a time like this to walk us through everything, because man, she had Diddy's number from the jump. So let's go into some of these other details that has come out. So this is a 14-page indictment. So buckle in, buckle up, I mean, and we'll go through. I don't think all of it, but we'll go through a little bit, and let's just see how it starts. It says, this is, by the way, already gone to a grand jury. That's what brought the indictment. The indictment was unsealed today, Tuesday morning, and it starts: for decades, Sean Combs, aka Puff Daddy, aka P Diddy, aka Diddy, aka PD, aka Love, the defendant abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on the employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Sean Combs, the defendant, operated his business headquartered at various times in Manhattan and Los Angeles under a variety of United States-based corporate entities, including Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, and Combs Global. These were his record labels, his recording studio, an apparel line, an alcoholic spirits business, a marketing agency, and a television network and media company. The defendant has engaged in persistent and pervasive patterns of abuse towards women and other individuals. This abuse was at times verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual. As parts of his pattern of abuse, Combs manipulated women to participate in highly orchestrated performances of sexual activity with male commercial sex workers. So these are male sex workers. At times, Combs and others acting at his direction made arrangements for women and commercial sex workers to fly to Combs' location. So that's where the trafficking comes in. Combs ensured participation from the women by, among other things, obtaining and distributing narcotics to them, controlling their careers, leveraging his financial support, and threatening to cut off the same, and using intimidation and violence. Combs, the defendant, was recurrent and widely known on numerous occasions from at least in or about 2009 and continuing for years. Combs assaulted women by, among other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects at, and kicking them. The assaults were at times witnessed by others and included one instance at an LA hotel in March of 2016, which was captured on video and later publicly reported. This is the Cassie video that we saw from years and years ago that he had paid off to not have that video made public. Thank God it was made public, and thank God for Cassie to actually come forward. You know how brave that is, and you know how triggering today has to be for her to relive this sexual abuse again and again. This is just me talking. This isn't in the document. Okay, the document continues. Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a woman when she was attempting to leave. When a member of the hotel security staff intervened, Combs attempted to bribe the staff member to ensure silence. Combs' violence was also not limited to these women. It extended to his employees, witnesses to his abuse, and others. Sean Combs, the defendant, used the Combs business, including certain employees, to carry out, facilitate, and cover up his abuse and commercial sex. Those employees, including security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and high-ranking supervisors, and other close associates, acted as Combs intermediaries, and their conduct was facilitated and assisted by Combs' control of the Combs business. So I do wonder who has already folded on Combs, who the Southern District already has that are willing to testify from within this Combs business. It continues from at least in or about 2008 through on or about the date of the filing. Sean Combs, the defendant, and others known and unknown were members and associates of a criminal organization. They call it the Combs Enterprise. Members and associates of the Combs Enterprise engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other activities, sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, coercion and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. The Combs Enterprise, including its leadership, members, and associates, constituted as the Enterprise, they're saying that the enterprise was all involved in this. The Combs Enterprise constituted an ongoing organization whose members functioned as a continuing unit for a common purpose of achieving the objectives of the Combs Enterprise. The Combs Enterprise was engaged in and its activities affected interstate and foreign commerce. The Combs Enterprise operated in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, and that's where the Southern District of New York has their case. They do say that Diddy is the leader of the Combs Enterprise. The defendant and others known and unknown participated in lawful activities. Certain members of the Combs security staff, household, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So they're saying all of these people are involved. Now, purpose of the Combs Enterprise. This is the next part of this indictment. It says the purpose was operating a global business in the media, entertainment, and lifestyle industries, including, among other things, record labels, a recording studio, all of this. Preserving, protecting, promoting, and enhancing the power, reputation, and brand of Sean Combs. Enriching members and associates of the enterprise included its leader, Combs, and in particular, those who demonstrated loyalty to Combs and willingness to conceal his crimes. Now, they have ensured the loyalty through violence, use of firearms, threats of violence, coercion, verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. Fulfilling the personal desires of Combs, particularly those related to Combs' sexual gratification, including through the exploitation of women and the use of commercial sex workers. Enabling Combs and other members and associates of the Combs Enterprise to engage in these unlawful acts of violence, sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution. So they just keep naming these things, narcotics distribution and other crimes. He would secure absolute loyalty from members of the Combs Enterprise, including through acts of violence and threats. And it was protecting the Combs Enterprise from detection and prosecution by law enforcement authorities through acts of intimidation, manipulation, bribery, and threats of retaliation against individuals who witnessed the crimes committed by members and associates of the enterprise. It's another reason why they did not grant bail, because they're like, this guy is just going to continue to be intimidating these people that have been at these events. You have to wonder, you have to imagine how many backdoor deals have already been, how much money has already been spent on keeping these people quiet. You've got to imagine it's already an ungodly sum. Means and methods of the enterprise. It says members of the Combs Enterprise wielded the power and prestige of Combs' role at the Combs business to intimidate it. So, a lot of repeating in this indictment. But it's saying, the role of Combs' business to intimidate, threaten, and lure female victims into Combs' orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Combs then used force, threats of force, coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sex acts with male commercial sex workers that Combs referred to as, among other things, freak-offs. This is our first mention of freak-offs. They continue on. Freak-offs were elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, masturbated during, and often electronically recorded. In arranging these freak-offs, Combs, with the assistance of members and associates of the Combs Enterprise, transported and caused to be transported commercial sex workers across state lines and internationally. Freak-offs occurred regularly, sometimes lasted multiple days, and often involved multiple commercial sex workers. During freak-offs, Combs distributed a variety of controlled substances to the victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant, sometimes unbeknownst to the victims. Combs kept videos he filmed of victims engaging in sex acts with commercial sex workers. After freak-offs, Combs and the victims typically received IV fluids to recover from the physical exertion and drug use. Can you imagine that? Like, hey, great 3-day freak-off. Let's get some IV. Like, oh my God. They're saying all of the employees facilitated in these freak-offs by, among other things, booking hotel rooms for the freak-off, stocking the hotel rooms in advance with the required freak-off supplies, including controlled substances, baby oil, lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. Cleaning the hotel rooms after the freak-offs to try to mitigate room damage, arranging for travel for victims, commercial sex workers, and Combs to and from freak-offs, resupplying Combs with requested supplies, delivering large sums of cash to Combs to pay the commercial sex workers, and scheduling the delivery of IV fluids. In or about March 2024, during searches of Combs' residence in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized various freak-off supplies, including narcotics, and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. 1,000 bottles of baby oil. What a weird number. Which, by the way, on topic, but off of these court documents, 50 Cent has finally entered the chat in regards to P. Diddy. 50 Cent has been trolling Diddy for a year now, potentially, his whole career. But he made a tweet, and he said, I'm trying to find the tweet. I posted it earlier, but it was just like, oh, dude, man. He said, the caption read, "Here I am keeping good company with Drew." It was a picture on the Drew Barrymore show. "Here I am keeping good company with Drew Barrymore, and I don't have 1,000 bottles of lube at the house." And then he tagged his companies, his cognac, and anyways. So 50 is well aware. 50 sold a documentary series to Netflix called Diddy Do It, which is kind of a brilliant name, Diddy Do It. So 50 is already trolling Diddy, and I'm sure that's going to continue. So we'll see. So already making fun of that 1,000 bottles of baby oil. I mean, some of this is so wild, and you have to really, some of this is kind of horrifying. Combs subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse to the victims to engage in the freak-offs. Combs maintained control over his victims through, among other things, physical violence, promises of career opportunities, granting and threatening to withhold financial support, and other coercive means, including tracking their whereabouts, dictating the victim's appearance, monitoring their medical records, controlling their housing, and supplying them with controlled substances. During these freak-offs, he would hit, kick, throw objects, and drag victims at times by their hair. These assaults often resulted in injuries that took days or weeks to heal. Combs also threatened victims' careers and livelihoods, including if they resisted participating in freak-offs. Victims believed they could not refuse Combs' demands without risking their financial or job security, or without repercussions in the form of physical or emotional abuse. Combs also used the sensitive, embarrassing, and incriminating recordings that he made during these freak-offs as collateral to ensure the continued obedience and silence of the victims. So he's saying, look, man, I've got you on tape having sex with these sex workers for days at a time, and I will release these, and I will put that out there if you ever go against me. I mean, just imagine how frightening. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise at times carried firearms. On more than one occasion, Combs himself carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten others, including victims of and witnesses to his abuse. In or about March of 2024, I mean, that's just, March, a couple months ago, during searches of Combs' residences in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized firearms and ammunitions, including 3 AR-15s with defaced serial numbers, as well as drum magazines. The Combs enterprise control over the victims by following his directions regarding financial payments to the victims, advancing or suppressing the victims' career opportunities, and acquiring the controlled substances Combs used to keep the victims compliant. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise at times witnessed Combs' violence towards the victims or the victims' injuries caused by Combs without intervening. So he was abusing these women with other people around. Instead, members and associates of the Combs enterprise helped conceal the violence and abuse by, among other things, assisting Combs in monitoring and preventing victims from leaving locations such as hotels or Combs' residence. These occasions included instances in which a victim was required to remain in hiding, sometimes for several days at a time, to recover from injuries Combs inflicted without being publicly observed. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise also assisted Combs in locating and contacting victims who attempted to flee his abuse. When employees, witnesses to abuse, or others threaten Combs' authority or reputation, Combs and members and associates of the enterprise engaged in acts of violence, threats of violence, financial and reputational harm, and verbal abuse. These acts of violence included kidnapping and arson. In addition, on multiple occasions, Combs threw both objects and people, as well as hit, dragged, choked, and shoved others. So when Combs' authority or reputation was threatened by the possibility of negative publicity or legal or law enforcement actions against him, including in or about late 2023, following public allegations of Combs' crimes, this is where Cassie comes in, Combs and members and associates of the enterprise pressured witnesses and victims, including through attempted bribery, to stay silent and not report what they experienced to law enforcement. On phone calls, Combs and other members and associates of the enterprise, among other things, provided these victims and witnesses with a false narrative of events in an effort to conceal Combs' crimes. So I do wonder if wiretapping was involved here, how they have these recorded calls. Combs caused these calls to be recorded on at least 2 occasions. Wow. So it says from at least in or about 2008 through the date of filing, Diddy, the defendant, and others known and unknown, being persons employed by and associated with the Combs enterprise, described. Anyways, they're saying that they knowingly combined interstate and foreign commerce, or these things affected interstate and foreign commerce, conspired, confederated, and agreed together and with each other to violate the racketeering laws of the United States, to wit, Title 18, United States Code, Section 1962C, that is, to conduct and participate directly and indirectly in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity, as the term is defined in Title 18, United States Code, Section 1961.1 and 1961.5, consisting of multiple acts involving kidnapping, chargeable under the following provisions of state law. They have California Penal Code in here, multiple acts of involving arson, California Penal Code in there, multiple acts of involving bribery, multiple acts of indictable under Title 18 relating to tampering with a witness, relating to forced labor, relating to sex trafficking, relating to transportation and inducement to travel for purposes of prostitution and other illegal activities. Multiple offenses involving the possession with intent to distribute or distribution of narcotics and controlled substances. You have cocaine, oxycodone, alprazolam, meth, gamma, GHB, ketamine. Ketamine was what Matthew Perry died from. It was part of the conspiracy that Diddy, the defendant, agreed that a conspirator would commit at least 2 acts of racketeering activity in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs enterprise. Man. They're saying that him and the people around him knowingly recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, provided, obtained, advertised, maintained, patronized, and solicited by any means a person knowing and in reckless disregard of the fact that means of force, threats of force, fraud, and coercion, as described in Title 18. I mean, this is wild. So that's count 1. Count 2 is the sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion for victim 1. And I'm wondering if victim 1 is Cassie. But this just kind of keeps going. Count 3 is the transportation to engage in prostitution. And then the forfeiture allegations as a result of committing the offense alleged in count 1 of the indictment. The defendant shall forfeit to the United States any securities of, claims against, and property of contractual rights of any kind, affording a source of influence over the enterprise named and described. I think he's just giving up his property. I don't know. Sorry, guys. I'm not a lawyer. Emily D. Baker, great lawyer. Check her out. Anyways, including but not limited to a sum of money in the United States currency representing the amount of proceeds traceable to the commission of said offense. So any and all property, real and personal, involved in, used, or intended to be used to commit or to facilitate the commission of said offense, and any and all property traceable to such property, any and all property, real and personal, constituting or derived from proceeds obtained directly and indirectly as a result of said offense, including but not limited to a sum of money in United States currency representing the amount of property involved in said offense and proceeds traceable to the commission of said offense. Okay, a little lost on that one, you guys. I'm not going to lie. A little lost on the forfeiture here. The substitute assets provision, it says if any of the above described forfeitable property as a result of any act or omission of the defendant cannot be located, has been transferred or sold, has been placed beyond the jurisdiction of the court, has been substantially diminished in value, has been commingled with other property which cannot be subdivided without difficulty, it is the intent of the United States to seek forfeiture of any other property of the defendant up to the value of the above forfeitable property. So I think they're saying here, it's like, you can't put it all in your son's names. You can't give it to your friends. You can't all of a sudden just, give all your money to somebody else. No, we have that money. With that's our money now, potentially. So that is the indictment that got unsealed this morning. That's a lot to grapple with. And these are just 14 pages. This is just the tease. I mean, we still don't know everything that they have. But the Southern District in their presentation today showed pictures of the guns, of the casing, all of that stuff. Let's get into what Diddy's defense team proposed to the Southern District in regards to the bail package and what was ultimately denied by the Southern District or by the judge. So the defense proposes the following bail package: a $50 million bond co-signed by Sean Combs, his mother, his sister, the mother of his oldest daughter, and 3 adult sons, secured by the equity in Mr. Combs' residence located at 2 West Star Island in Miami, Florida. Um, Miami, Florida. That's his house in Miami. The appraised value of the home is about $48 million. The home is unencumbered. In anticipation of this bail hearing on August 20th, 2024, Mr. Combs paid off the remaining mortgage, about $18 million, so that the home could be used to secure a bond and be free of mortgage. So this guy knew they all knew this was coming. So he paid off $18 million on this mansion to put it up as collateral. And that's why. So, this was, they knew what was coming. Secured by the equity of Mr. Combs' mother's home located at 450 Alton Road in Miami, Florida. Mr. Combs' travel will be restricted to the Southern District of Florida and the Southern District of New York to attend court, meet with his counsel, and attend medical appointments. I told you the medical appointments, which we will address to the court in a separate sealed submission. All of a sudden, I have this feeling that Diddy's going to have a list of ailments that he's going to need constant medical attention for. But they're saying they're going to seal that submission, as well as the Eastern District of New York or the District of New Jersey, only to the extent that his travel to and from New York involves an airport in those districts. So he's saying, hey, on this bail, just let me travel to Florida and New York. That's all I need. I don't need to go anywhere else, but I'll go there. Mr. Combs' passport was surrendered to his counsel on April 1st, 2024, to his counsel. His counsel advised, that's April Fool's. His counsel advised the prosecutors of this fact in an email dated the same day. Counsel will provide this passport to pretrial services. So the Southern District knew that he had surrendered it on April 1st. That's how long this has been, in the works here. The passports of the following family members who have already surrendered their passports to counsel after the raids of Mr. Combs' homes are Janice Combs, Chance Combs, Jesse Combs, Delilah Combs, and Love Combs. His daughters. What his daughters have to be going through because of Diddy. Really, really, really disturbing stuff. Okay, so we did that, and then by the way, TMZ has photos of the detention center. Damn. So welcome to MD. Oh, so now wait, they're saying this is MDC Brooklyn, and not the MCC. So, the feds shipped him out of the Lower Manhattan Federal Courthouse and off to Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. And this has been home to R. Kelly, Fetty Wap, Michael Cohen, Allison Mack, Ghislaine Maxwell. So I believe the original was wrong about the MCC. So the MCC with Epstein, this is what Trisha mentioned about the Brooklyn Detention Center. Now, his twin daughters are back in California. They're being cared for by his late mom's friend. You can only imagine what they're going through. Now, he pleaded not guilty to this, to these charges. His lawyer is Mark Agnafilo, and the judge, Robin F. Tarnofsky, told the court, I thank your family members for coming, but I cannot release him. Diddy's son, Christian and Justin, were inside the courtroom at the time. Diddy's attorney is taking on the narrative that the rap mogul isn't a brute and a bully, seemingly hinting that there's more to the story regarding the 2016 hotel hallway incident involving Combs and then girlfriend Cassie. Diddy's camp argued victim one was looking through his phone and discovered he had more than one girlfriend, hitting the rapper in the head with a cell phone and taking off with his clothing, which explains why he was in the hallway in a towel in the footage that surfaced back in May. His lawyer claims Diddy and the unnamed victim, assumed to be Cassie, they were very much in love until the woman in question cheated for years with the trainer the A-lister provided for her. So now they're trying to make her out to be the cheat. Oh, what a harlot. What a cheater. They reached out to Cassie's rep for comment. Cassie notably married physical trainer Alex Fine in 2019, and now they share 2 children together, and it seems like a beautiful relationship. They've spoken publicly about that. Diddy's lawyer claimed his client is not a perfect person, though found himself in a toxic relationships, but claims they were mutual toxic relationships. However, earlier in court, it was suggested that Diddy wrote a large check when he did write a large that our legal system. This is crazy. I'm sorry, I just lost my place. That Diddy wrote a large check to an ex for 10 years. It's unclear who received the payment and for what reason. The prosecutors laid out their case for denying Diddy bail, and they said they're worried he will intimidate witnesses and obstruct the case if he's released on bond. What's more, the feds say the witnesses they've interviewed have universally expressed fear, and prosecutors claim Diddy called his former artist, Kalena Harper, 54 times the day before she made a statement about a recent lawsuit they were named in. Prosecutors also say that Diddy got the money and the means to be a flight risk, and the feds say he had what appeared to be narcotics in his hotel room when he was arrested. The feds say a pink powder that tested positive for ecstasy was found in Diddy's hotel room, as well as other drugs. So when he was does that mean just on Monday? Wow, but he pled not guilty to all of this. And obviously the judge ruled against the bail. The lawyer, Mark Angfilos, vowed to keep fighting until Combs is a free man. Though Diddy was denied bail in court Tuesday, his attorney is feeling confident heading into the bail appeal, noting it will be a different judge for that hearing. Yeah. How many? Hey, give me a different judge. Let's see if there's anything different. Now, this lawyer, you guys, gosh, this is just dark shit. So TMZ reported all of that. I'm so curious because Diddy made some videos a long time ago with like all of the with the kids saying all the other celebrities' names. So I'm curious if other people are going to be named. And the Southern District said, hey, we can't really talk right now about what other charges might be coming down, but they will not say that this is the end. They said, no, we can't say that this is definitely the end of charges. So other people might be roped into this as well. Ooh. So this great Twitter account that I mentioned earlier, Inner City Press, that covers a lot of trials and things of this nature, has some really, stuff on the scene in the courtroom. It says Sean Combs earlier today is now sitting at the defense table in a black shirt with 2 U.S. Marshals standing behind him. His lawyer is Mark Agnifilo. Prosecutor's table is full. The judge comes in, talks about the indictment, talks about the charges, asks for the plea. Combs says not guilty. The conference date is Tuesday, September 24th at 10 a.m. The judge excluded a speedy trial act time until then. We will have a detention hearing. These crimes carry a maximum sentence of life in prison or death. There is a risk of flight and that the person will obstruct justice or attempt to intimidate a witness. This is a presumption case based on sex trafficking. The judge says, Mr. Combs, the government bears the burden of establishing that you are a danger to the community. And then it said government. And then she said government for their case. And they talked about him abusing victims for decades, that he set up the freak offs. Kind of going through everything that we just read in the indictment, just going through every bit of that indictment. The AUSA says R. Kelly was detained. Jeffrey Epstein was detained on conduct going much further back in time. Keith Raniere detained on all 3 grounds, even though the violence was committed by others. His incentive to flee changed when he was arrested last night. The Southern District said the defendant is a wealthy man. It allows him to flee quickly and without detection. His counsel have taken steps to minimize flight risk to set him up for the argument made today for the bail. But then his incentives were entirely different. He flew to New York 2 weeks ago. He had what appeared to be narcotics, what we just talked about. This is a heartland detention case, they say. His package is woefully inadequate. It only focuses on flight risk, which is the paper I read you and what the defense was offering, the $50 million. The Southern District said the government has spoken to over 50 witnesses. We have sworn out warrants for cloud accounts. The search have yielded 90 cell phones and 30 other devices, including a surveillance system. The freak-offs are corroborated. Wow, 300 grand jury subpoenas. The defendant poses a danger to those proceedings through obstructions. He should be detained pending trial. Now, Diddy's lawyer now jumps in and it says, we could tell an indictment was coming in the fall from our meetings with the prosecutor's chiefs. My client flew to New York. I told the prosecutors I'd like him to have the opportunity to turn himself in. We got involved in this case in March of 2024. We've been doing our own investigation. On March 13th, I reached out to my colleagues at the U.S. Attorney's Office and asked to meet. The November 2023 lawsuit seems connected. It got attention. They read the papers. After the raids, we took Mr. Combs' passport on April 1st. After that, anytime he traveled domestically, we told the prosecutors. A trip to graduations in California, another one for whitewater raft. You got a whitewater raft. We wanted to build trust to surrender, his lawyer is telling the judge. The March 25th raids were frightening. Lasers pointed at his children. They were marched out of the front of the house, which is what we heard with Jen Shaw's case, or what we saw as well, with news reporters and helicopters handcuffed for 2 hours, completely innocent. We did not want that to happen again, Agnophile says. Oof. Man, some of this information with how much they have against him is truly eye-opening. Diddy's lawyer continues, Mr. Combs flew to New York to say, you want me? I know you want me. Here he is. We were worried that he had an airplane. We said, we have to sell it. There is a financial management company that deals with these issues. We're trying. So his defense is saying, hey, we're trying to sell all of the means that he would escape by, so he's safe. He continues, why are we trying to sell the plane? It's not our first rodeo. The plane, someone else is using it from LA to Teterboro tonight. Just my luck. I wouldn't have the temerity to come here and ask for freedom if I didn't have the passport. So he's saying, hey, this plane has already been, he is loaned out. He can't use it tonight. There's one victim in count 2, the sex trafficking charge. Mr. Combs wrote a very large check to someone he was in a relationship with for 10 years. People got in line for their checks. I had no idea. 12 victims. I didn't know. I'm happy there's only one. This case, we think, is eminently manageable. Pretrial services say he has a criminal record, but he was acquitted. He is ready to do that again. What is Mr. Combs doing in New York? He's here for treatment and therapy. We got Jax Taylor in the house. Mr. Combs is not a perfect person. These toxic relationships were mutual. Now he is trying to be better for the rest of his days. Okay, good. If there's one thing we've seen, we should stand with people who are trying to get the help they need. Somehow this hotel footage found its way out. I wonder how that happened. We didn't have it. The government had it. It got out on a day Donald Trump didn't have any court proceedings. Uh-oh. Drop Trump's name out there. Mr. Combs saw it and issued an apology. He wanted to do it. Oh, Mr. Angophilo, are you kidding me? He says 2 people were in a hotel room, an issue that Mr. Combs had more than one girlfriend, okay? So this is going through victim 1, finding out that he had another girlfriend. And so they're saying this victim 1, which is allegedly Cassie, was like, oh, and like she was the one being abusive to him. And he was like defending himself. It said these 2 people were in love, he argues. Victim 1 ended up marrying the trainer that Mr. Combs got for her. They had been cheating on each other for years, but now she had 2 kids with the trainer. Years later, she realized she had a good thing with Mr. Combs. This guy, that line should be a shame, Game of Thrones shame. She has her lawyer call his lawyer and say she has written a book, but if you want to buy the rights, you'll have the rights for $30 million. We have a recorded conversation. It did not go well for her and the lawyer. November 2023, she sues. When he contacts witnesses, it's not to stop a criminal investigation. It's to not be seen. It's to not be seen as one. Why is it depicted as a one-sided thing? There's 30 million reasons, $1 a piece. She said, I'm going to write a book. You can buy the rights. This Don Richard lawsuit and Miss Harper from the same band, this is the other one that just got filed from making the band. The lawsuit says he did a couple of inappropriate things. Miss Harper said, that was not my experience. That is not intimidation. It's divergent recollections. There's nothing wrong with that. Divergent recollections. That's a very specific term. I bet the Southern District has proof that they gave that verbiage to Miss Harper. The lawyer continues, I'm not even sure Don Richard is a witness in this case, so he's just throwing out names. My client hasn't done a darn thing. We have interviewed at least 6 of these males. We asked, did it seem non-consensual? Anyone too drunk or too high? They all said no. No, we all had a pretty nice buzz going, but nothing crazy. Yeah, no. Just 1,000 bottles of lube. Is it sex trafficking if everyone wants to be there? No, we don't want the federal government in our bedroom. The kidnapping, we spoke to the victim. She didn't use that word to us. One day it might be heard Mr. Combs employs a security company. Mr. Combs has nothing to do with how guns are kept in his house. Okay, so that's how they're going to get those gun charges. Say, oh, that's his security. He's a famous person, right? He needs security, the lawyer argues, in the sections of LA and Miami he lives in. Did they do it wrong? Not for us to say, he says. Not his gun. R. Kelly? That involved children. They cannot consent. Jeffrey Epstein, he continues, children. Keith Raniere, children. We have a substantial bail package. Some family members are here. They love him. 50 million bond, blah, blah, blah. One day we're here. We're here to have a fair trial. We have substantial defenses to each of these charges. Mr. Combs is handling this head on. He's becoming a punching bag. He's built businesses from scratch. His father was killed when he was 2 years old. He earned all of it. Mr. Combs has earned this court's trust. I have nothing else to say. Now, the AUSA, the prosecution, argues, it's their turn. And it says, defense counsel has his critique of law enforcement, but he has not rebutted the presumption that the defendant should be detained. 3 days after the November 2023 lawsuit, the defendant is recorded saying he doesn't want to talk on the phone. It might be tapped. He uses armed security with defaced AR-15 stored in the defendant's personal closet. Absurd. For the record, we are proceeding on a theory of lack of consent, that she was coerced to participate in those sex acts. And the judge says he wouldn't be in danger, would he, if he only engaged in these behaviors with consenting adults? And the AUSA says, we have the hallway video. Diddy's lawyer says, this is a slippery slope. The government is going to say she was coerced. She had to say that to go for the 30 million. We have a serious bail package. I hope your honor can see that Mr. Combs has done things to show that he is trustworthy. I am asking you to trust me. I have my eye on him. We speak 5 times a day. I want to thank you, your honor. And the judge says, thank you. I'm going to take a short recess and invite pretrial services to join me in the robing room. So now they're back in the court after the robing room. And the judge rules. It says, in this case, I find the presumption has not been rebutted. So Sean Combs will be detained. There has been significant violence and weapons around. Also, coercion of witnesses, even gentle coercion, can be effective. The type of behavior we're talking about happens behind closed doors. I thank your family members for coming, but I cannot release him. And yeah. Of course, Diddy already has people defending him. People, fans, all of that stuff. And I do wonder sometimes if they read any of this stuff. Very harrowing. Now, Aubrey O'Day from Danity Kane, which P. Diddy started, which we saw on MTV back in the day, she tells TMZ today, I never thought I would see this day. We all buried this inside of us in order to be able to keep going. And not just me, but victims you don't even know yet. We are all processing what that type of vindication can actually feel like now. Every conversation I've had with victims last night has been beyond moving on all levels, because Aubrey O'Day was one of those people that did try to tell us about Diddy, and not a lot of people listened to her. So that is what we got thus far, folks. I'm sure there's going to be so much information coming out. This is going to be probably the best defense this man can buy. And this man's got deep, deep pockets. So it's going to be interesting to see what they come back with. He is not going down without a fight. Diddy, if we know anything about him, is how tenacious he is. And the reason why they call him Puff Daddy is because he would huff and puff as a kid, because he didn't like to lose. He would huff and puff, and they called him Puffy because he was all puffing up his chest. And so this man is a fighter, but this man is also an abuser, a criminal, a trafficker, and all of these things, what I think the Southern District will be able to prove, or potentially already has in so many ways. Like I said, the Southern District of New York doesn't take on cases that they are wishy-washy about. But we will see what a good defense can buy, what it can do. But as of now, he is in that Brooklyn detention center. So Diddy, we finally have the hammer dropping. The wheels of justice move slowly, and we will see what happens from this point on. But I would imagine once Diddy realizes, if he hasn't already, that there is no way out to quote one of his albums, is that he might go scorched earth and take everybody down with him. Yeah, think about the victims. And that's it, you guys. I hope I did this somewhat justice. I know this is usually somewhat of a comedic show, but I wanted to go through this because I think this is a really big pop culture moment. So thank you for listening to this. Okay, and listen to tomorrow's show. I swear to God, it's going to be much more lighter, really way funnier than all of this tragedy.